How's it going? So I finally finished my Hemingway video that I wanted to do. I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little bit rushed because kids should be walking through the door any minute. But I really wanted to start this vlog because I've kind of already started it. But I couldn't film anything new without finishing up uploading another video. So that's in the works, trying to get it uploaded. I don't know what's up with my Wi-Fi right now. That's frustrating. I'm gonna figure that out in a minute. But there's a YouTuber who's doing this challenge called the Read It or UnHaul It challenge, and I love this idea. I kind of did something similar. Emily Fox does, I really love what she's doing, where she took all of her unread books and stuck them in a jar, and I love that idea. But I'm going to do something a little bit different, and it kind of goes along with this idea I had so long ago to do a challenge like Read a Shelf challenge. So it's kind of a blend. I never kind of worked out the kinks of that challenge. So whatever. The whole idea is to read it or unhaul it. And I have one shelf in particular I'm kind of focused on. So let's go take a look at that shelf. For me, I don't want to just pick any random book because it might be a book I want to wait for the right time, or I really want to sit down with it. And I'm not in any big hurry. The books that I have in mind are ones that are just kind of already on the fence if they're the right book for me to begin with. This is the shelf in question, and right at first I have these two Alice Hoffman books. The last few Alice Hoffman books I have picked up, I've not really enjoyed that much. I remember finding this one and just thinking, what a gorgeous cover. And I keep expecting her to have you know, magical realism. This one, I think, this other Alice Hoffman. I have this one by Kate Morton, The Clockmaker's Daughter. I don't know, I guess I just want to make a decision on it. Yeah. This one I don't mind holding on to for longer. This one as well. This one I've heard nothing but good things, so I don't mind, you know, holding off on that till I'm really in the mood. This one, feel like for years I keep wanting to read this book. I don't know. I've been really itching to read this one, and I want to make a decision on that one. This one's actually the second in a series, and I've yet to finish the first one. The first one is in paperback form, so it's on a different shelf because, you know, aesthetics. So obviously that one can stay. This one I just kind of want to make a decision on. This one as well, I'm kind of wondering if I'm going to like it after all, because after rereading the synopsis of this one, it's really heavy on this cooking thing. And I don't know if that's my jam, but it is also about an Iranian family, I want to say. No, so that's going on the list. This one I don't mind holding off. This one I've read. Both of these actually. This one's another one recently I have been reading a lot of very serious books, and I've read Jenny Lawson before, and she is a hilarious author. And this is also a memoir, and I just think that this would be a really good time to kind of lighten the mood between reading A Little Life. Yeah, so there's that one. And then the dinner list, I'm just not 100% sure. This is my kind of book. I remember it being on an anticipated reading list that just sounded really good, but now I am torn on that one. And then these can all stay. Among these, I kind of leaning towards maybe Saturday or The Road. Let's see. Red. Maybe this one. But these are like nice hardbacks and they don't take up a whole lot of space. But this clears up quite a bit of space. And depending on, I'm thinking regardless, if I read any of these books and like them, I think I would still unhaul them, except for maybe Furiously Happy. I may end up keeping that one. We'll see. All of these books over here that I want to move into that space. So that's why I really need to like move some stuff around. Oh, here's actually another really good one that I need to make a decision on it. Dark Lover by J.R. Ward. This is the first in a long-running adult vampire romance series. Quite a long time ago, I went to this bag sale. It was like fill a bag for $1, and I ended up finding like the first 12 books or 10 books in the series, I want to say. And I was so excited at the time because I had heard so many people recommending this book to me. I was absolutely sure it was going to feed that craving for more Twilight-like fantasy. It took me years to finally get to reading the first book, and unfortunately, I'm very disappointed. That being said, this is going on the UnHaul list along with all of the rest of the books that I have in the series. There's like 26 books or something like that. I don't have all 26 books, but I have a lot of them, and they're taking up a lot of space on my shelf. So in a way, it's actually really nice to clear out that space for books that are actually going to be much more fulfilling. This actually really pains me, and I had considered that maybe I should just give it another chance or read on in the series. And no, I will eventually like it, but I think there's some definite foundational things that I'm just not a huge fan of. The vampires themselves are just really not the kinds of vampires that I really like. Honestly, they're kind of cringe, especially Wraith, who is our main male character. By the way, what kind of name is Wraith? I feel like names like Wraith are so overdone. It's like Damien. That's another name that you see a lot of, especially in vampire novels. Damien or Damon or whatever, you know what I'm talking about. Like there are certain names you're just like, oh, it must be a vampire. Names like that are supposed to incite some sort of danger and mystery and just be exotic. Whatever, I'm sure when these books came out, which I don't have the date of when these came out. I don't know when they were first published. I'll have to look it up at some other date. I am kind of curious now though, like how old are these? Anyways, I'm sure when these books came out, it was probably not as cliche. And unfortunately, as a modern reader, it's kind of like going backwards. So, but that just goes to show that token or these kinds of like exotic names might have a shelf life and affect the longevity of your novel. So this book actually reminded me so much of Sarah J. Maas' style, which Sarah J. Maas obviously came after these, so I'm wondering if she didn't get a lot of inspiration from them. I think it's mostly in her male characters. They're kind of alpha holes, kind of like the males in here. Like they are very like over the top, I'm a man, I have rippling muscles kind of dudes. Honestly, I don't really mind those tropes with the brutally alpha male. Falls for the unlikely heroine, she's just not like other girls. It's a fantasy, it's fine. I eat that kind of stuff up. But for me, now these are adult romances, so they're going to be heavy on the adult content sex scenes. I knew this going in, and I think that when I first decided to pick them up, I didn't know how I was going to feel reading those kinds of books. Back when I had picked these up, I had read quite a few on like the adult romance genre, and I think that I decided then that I just don't think these are for me. Sarah J. Maas, I love her plots and her characters and her story a lot, but still the sex scenes in her books are also just a little over the top. They're kind of cringe. The language authors have to use to express these sex scenes, I just don't vibe with it very well. I don't find it sexy. So that's very much true for this one as well. And the sex scenes kind of overshadowed the plot. The plot wasn't that interesting. That's the cat playing with the thing. The first time our main characters have a sexual encounter, it's not built up at all. Questionable fever dream and just overcome with this uncontrollable desire. In the sense of an erotic novel, I guess there is a place for that. I mean, some people kind of have that thing where, you know, you don't need to know their name. You just go for it. Okay, maybe that's hot to some people. That works for some people. It just doesn't work for me. Personally, for me, it just feels uncomfortable and rushed. I don't feel the heat and I don't feel the passion. As I said, the vampires were not my kind of vampires. I kind of can't remember how to explain them very well, like their lore. Also didn't really care for their politics very much. I can't even describe really what their politics were, what their lore was, kind of like how someone becomes a vampire in this world. And our main character's dad is a vampire and he's been like absent, but he's been there and he's tasked somebody with looking out for her when she goes through this change, I guess because her father was a vampire, so she goes through, it's like inevitable that she will just go through a change, kind of like puberty on crack. I just don't care that much about it. It was just very different experience, I guess. I enjoyed it well enough, I guess. From me talking about it, it really doesn't sound like I enjoyed anything about it. I think I really liked the beginning, getting to know our main character up until the point right up. Oh, and there's like this love triangle. I did kind of think that was interesting. I always like a good love triangle though. Some people just really don't like that, but I do like them. So there was a love triangle in there. Once they start like confronting that conflict, I just kind of did not like it as much because we started to see the vampires for being these like alpha holes. Everything annoying about it more or less overshadowed anything good about it. So there's that one. I can unhaul the whole set. Yes. I did already make quite a bit of headway on this list. I have 3 more books to go ahead and talk about. Another Alice Hoffman one, Bites the Dust. I can't even really tell you anything about this book. Once I quit pretty early into it because once the characters started finger painting with period blood, I was done. I was outie. I was not into that. So I just found that so disgusting. I don't understand this whole obsession. I could go on kind of a rant about this, but it seems like in order to prove that you're a woman or there's some little clique in this feminist bubble, the extremist, like extreme feminists or something that like want to talk about periods all the time and think that women should have this freedom to talk about their periods. And okay, fine, if you do you, but I really don't want to hear about it. I don't think that that's like a thing that brings us together or, you know, uplifts women. It's just a thing that happens. And yeah, like we don't really need to talk about it. There's so many other hot topics that we could talk about, and flaunting periods is not one of them. So yeah, that's a big no. The next one is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste. I have heard her last name pronounced. I can't remember how it's pronounced. So anyways, this one I was very excited about. It sounded perfectly up my sleeve. It sounds like, do you remember that show Weeds? Not exactly like Weeds, but where it's just like suburban, like perfect homestead, suburban era. So I finished this book and I'm glad that I read it. I was really highly anticipating this book and I had like expectations going into it, weren't quite met. Being more like a 3.5. I don't know. I think I'm gonna go more to like a 3 because to be honest, it's in my brain, it's already kind of like fading in, you know, kind of remembering what it's about. Like I vaguely kind of recall what it's about, but I wouldn't remember the details if it wasn't for the detailed notes that I made. So I am referencing those notes if I'm looking away from the computer. So yeah, I felt like this book was very centered around race a lot of the times. That might make people uncomfortable. I don't know. It didn't really make me uncomfortable because I like conversations around that kind of thing. But it was very centered around race. That was just a thing. It does kind of come off as having a bit of a political agenda, which I think ultimately made it not enjoyable for me. I really don't like to feel like I'm being forced into ideals or opinions or that someone's trying to preach to me through their novel. Like I'm here for entertainment, not to be like pushed to think a certain way about a topic. And there is like a difference. It's kind of subtle, I think, sometimes, but I guess I need to explain what this book is about. How do I explain this book? I mean, I guess there's kind of a lot of stuff going on, but it does kind of center around this family. There's several families involved, and there's one family who cannot have children. She's had dozens of miscarriages, and she's just desperate to be a mother. And it seems to be like all she's living for. And then we have we have a woman who gets pregnant. She's an immigrant. She came here with a man, and then the man deserted her but left her pregnant, and she panicked and she didn't know how to take care of her baby, so she dropped the baby off at a fire station, and then decided later on that she wanted her baby back. So the family that had all these miscarriages, they decided to adopt, and they ended up with that woman's baby. And then there's another person, like a third party person in a different family, who kind of interjects herself into that situation, and then it takes this situation to the courts. And I think that was my favorite part about it, is just asking the question of, you know, kind of different questions in and around motherhood and abortions and giving your child up. The baby is Chinese, and people were asking this adoptive family, they were criticizing this adoptive family, looking at the dynamic of these white parents having a Chinese baby, and what that would look like. Should these people be expected to raise this Chinese baby with Chinese heritage? And I thought that was an interesting question. However, I just don't know how it was pitched, because it felt like the author really wanted to have this particular conversation, but I don't think that it was in the right setting, because I really didn't, because of the fact it was done in like the courtroom, and I feel like they were more focused on those issues than the other things that it takes to raise a baby, like financial stability, 2 parents with a steady home for the child to live in, being able to put them in good schools, etc., etc. Yeah. I'm kind of getting into the territory of, am I giving away too much for people who have not read it, who are interested in it? I apologize if I gave away too much, but I don't see myself ever rereading it. So this is gonna be UnHauled. Finally, I also have the dinner list. I ended up DNFing this book. I remember thinking that this book sounded really, really interesting, and it completely reminded me of this play of the 27 Club. God, it was so long ago in Dallas, and they were putting on this play, which at the time I just was not making a lot of money to justify going to a play, and it just never worked out, but I really wanted to see it. Basically, it was like either 5 or 7 people from the 27 Club. If you don't know what that is rock stars or musicians that all died at the age of 27, and unfortunately it seems to be like a cursed age for them. Got like Kurt Cobain, Jimi Hendrix, was it Janis Joplin? I'm not really sure. There's a ton of them, but they picked some of like my favorite people to basically be having this conversation in heaven, and that's what the play was about. So that's what it completely reminded me of. However, what transpired was our main character, has people at her table. She gets to invite people to a dinner that she would like to have another conversation with, and one of them is like, I only remember 2 of them. One of them is Audrey Hepburn, and another one is the love of her life. And I guess it ends up being this love story, right? This might mean a lot more to people who are big fans of Audrey Hepburn's films and Audrey Hepburn herself, but I have never really seen any of her movies except for one. Which one is that? One of my favorite films actually of all time. I have not seen Breakfast at Tiffany's, and this one seems to draw a lot from Breakfast at Tiffany's. which, how do I determine that? I know enough about it that I feel like it has drawn a lot from that. For me, I found this book to just be really boring. If there was a lot of Easter eggs dropped from all of these references, I didn't pick up on them, so maybe that's where the disconnect is, for one. I also decided that I thought the love story in general was just stupid and predictable, but ultimately I ended up just writing it all off completely because that the whole relationship was built off miscommunication. And the fact that this entire story keeps doing these flashbacks to periods in her life with these people at her table. And for that to be enjoyable, I feel like you have to like the characters and there has to be something captivating, and that I just did not care about. So that's that. This is obviously going to be a DNF. It's not a bad book. I think other people would really enjoy it. It's just not the book for me. And finally, Furiously Happy. I am not finished with this book. I am going to finish this book though. And this book is furiously funny. But I did read another Jenny Lawson book, Let's Pretend This Didn't Happen. And that book was phenomenal. Oh my gosh, I devoured it. And this book is not as good. What it is Jenny Lawson has come up with these funny quips. They sound like memes, or like they're just like these floating memes instead of being woven into like a story. And that's where I feel like, oof, this book is not great at all. But as I said, I followed this author. This is a memoir, and this is also about her mental health and her depression. And even if it's not executed well in like a story format like her other book was, they're still really funny, and they're great comedic relief that I really need in my life right now. So I think I picked this book up at the right time. I think maybe if I had picked it up at a different time, I may be more critical. But that being said, those are all the updates I have at the moment. I'm gonna have to do some library upkeep, switching things around. Don't I Know You by Marnie Jackson is going to go to the UnHaul pile. I remember I found this book like incredibly cheap, so it was just kind of like okay, why not? And it had a gorgeous cover, and I'm still kind of just like, why? It's such a beautiful cover. What initially attracted me to this book was I thought that it was an interesting concept of taking celebrities and having our main character kind of get to know them. I guess it's kind of aimed at bridging the gap of, ordinary or celebrity. You can still have interesting lives or something like that. I don't think that that's exactly what was going through my mind when I first picked this book up. But it was a short story collection, and then all of the stories should be tied together somehow. And I do like that method of. I think especially after reading the dinner list, I don't think that celebrity stuff is really my thing. I think that if you really like celebrity gossip and you are very familiar with the celebrities mentioned in this book, then maybe this will mean more to you. I have never really been into celebrity gossip at all. There's been a few cases that I've been interested in, but usually just kind of following their lives has never appealed to me. If you like their work and you're like a big fan of them, I feel like that's completely different than like following their personal lives. Like, it's one thing to follow an artist's work and another to be completely immersed in their personal lives. Those things should be separate. So anyways, that being said, I just don't think that I find it too unreal, and I can't wrap my head around taking real people with real lives and real stories and kind of rewriting their truth to fit like a fan fiction. I don't even know if I can really get into fan fiction too much for that same reason. If an author writes a character in one way, I really can't see them in another way. So I don't know. I guess it's just a personal thing. All that being said, this is just gonna go to the unhaul pile, and I have 4 more books on the pile. I definitely can't get to all of them today. I really need to make some progress on A Little Life. Yeah. All right, well, this is interesting. Okay, so 10th of December by George Saunders. I keep forgetting, I ended up picking up this one because I recognize the author of The Lincoln and the Bardo, which I heard is an amazing book. And I have not read that one yet. I'm still looking forward to reading that one. But this was like this is like a collection of like short stories. And I kind of skimmed through each of the stories just to kind of see if any of them really kind of captured my attention, if I could get into them. For the most part, I found the writing style in these, at least, nothing really captured my attention. And one of them in particular, I got into it and then I was like, well, this got really weird and uncomfortable because it was about like this guy having a sexual, or this couple having a sexual encounter, and then all of a sudden, like, they keep saying this drip on or whatever, and it's like some weird science experiment or something, and then they go on to replicate it with another partner, and that just made me feel so uncomfortable. It was just like, I don't care about this story. And then at the very end is the book's namesake, the 10th of December. So I tried to give that one a little bit more of effort to get into it, and it just did not do it for me. So this is going to go in the UnHaul pile. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this vlog with one last input about a book that I started. This is a kind of something I think that I definitely want to continue because I still have many more shelves to kind of sort through and figure out which ones are good candidates for this challenge. I have started A Probable Future by Alice Hoffman, and I was almost positive. I almost didn't even give this one a shot just because I was like, I have not had good luck with any of her books lately. So I just did not have high hopes for it. I was expecting it to be quickly dumped into the UnHaul pile. And but I am actually really glad that I started it. So far, so good. I really was just going to read like the first few pages just to see if something captured my attention, and it did. I have a little sticky note in here just so that when I go back to another book that I would really like to finish before I continue on with this, I can quickly remember what's going on. So this is actually about, this is very like magical story. It reminds me a lot of Practical Magic. We start the story with Jenny Sparrow, who is pregnant in the hospital delivering her baby, who she ends up naming Stella. And we also learn that Jenny has a very sordid relationship with her mother, and she hasn't talked to her for many years. She has a very rough time giving birth, and then the father of Stella is a bit of a flirt, and also they were intended to get married, but that ended up falling through. So all of that is laid out for us right from the get-go, and so far apparently Stella is going to have premonitions, and it's going to lead her dad to getting arrested or something. But so far so good. The magic in here so far is really nice. They really kind of talk about nature and like the month that, I guess most of the sparrows have been born in the month of March, and March is like not a good omen. I forget exactly what they say, but like either before March or after March, like in snow or in full spring, are good months to be born. But March is a really weird, unreliable month, and therefore children born in March are just as unreliable. But little baby Stella is already different. She's born with light hair and light colored eyes like her dad, instead of the long line of sparrow women, already setting her apart. And then also she is characterized as being just sweet, and that's also different. So Yeah, I would say that this is a book that I want to continue reading. I do have some other things that I need to read before I kind of slow down and give this one another chance. I do want to go ahead and read it to unhaul it. It's not a book that I would see myself keeping on my shelves after it's read. Anyways, that wraps up this portion of the vlog, and I will get back to you guys with another episode. I don't know when. I have a lot of other things that I like to do on my YouTube channel, but I really have a lot of fun doing this, and I have a little bit over a half a bag full to go ahead and unhaul. So that's exciting. I cannot believe that there is an open space on my bookshelf. It is beautiful. So I can kind of spread out some of my books that are really kind of clustered together because of lack of space. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.